Here we are. We are live. Can you hear me, Adrienne?
Yeah, hi.
How are you today?
I am doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Doing amazing. So I didn't tell you this. I gave you one surprise before we got started. You lucky I said I gave it to you because I typically don't give it up. That information. So I have like a million people, by the way, if that adds any additional pressure to you that watches this, and we need to give them.
I talk to a million people every day. Sure.
we need to give them time to get into this live stream. Of course, I don't have a million. Let's say yet, but yeah. So we'll just chat for a bit, and just give everybody an opportunity to get in here. It's been amazing doing these conversations because, as you know me, like I guess I'm known in the community that we met. I'm a mortgage guy, or maybe not. I don't know if anybody even knows what I do. I'm cordial with people, and we speak, and we, always try to network and help each other. And so, back in March, during the initial stages of this pandemic that we're in, I just decided that, listen, I wanted to take the time that I'm using at home and wanted to use the network that we've built over the years to start to connect people and to introduce folks within the network. And so instead of me coming on and talking about fixed rate mortgages and how to buy a home and things like that, like I can help with all of that. Like that's what I do. Everyone knows that. But it was very important to me because three pillars that I love to talk about here are like relationships, build them before you need them. Adrienne, your DNA, like what's inside you, why you do what you do. And I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit of that with you today. And lastly, like planning, like what's your plan? Like how are we going to reach our targets, goals, objectives, and all that good stuff. And so with that being said, we're going to get started. Those of you that are coming in, please take the time to place some comments because I think this is going to be a very impactful conversation today, and one that we all need to think about, and that's becoming more prevalent and very important. So leave comments, ask questions. Those of you that are tuning in after the fact to watch the replay, do the same. But so today, I have Adrienne Augustus with us. And she's a founder, and she started an organization called A Beautiful Mind Foundation. I got that right?
Yes, that's right.
I just say A Beautiful Mind. And so I'm not going to introduce you. You're going to introduce yourself. So can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I won't go all the way back to when I was born, but I am a Jersey girl originally. And I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Maryland in journalism. And so my early career, I like to say my first life, was as an investigative news reporter on television. I eventually left the industry and moved into corporate communications and public relations. So had a career in the for-profit sector for many years, but I also have been a lifelong volunteer. And so at a certain point in my career in the public sector with public relations, marketing, and of course the journalism background, I said, all right, if I'm going to be this stressed out, it needs to be because I'm saving babies and old people.
Wow.
And so I dove face first into graduate school and earned just very recently my Master of Public Administration with a focus in nonprofit management at UNC Chapel Hill. While I was there, I had the opportunity to start a project that I really didn't think I'd start until after I graduated, which would have been right now. So to create a nonprofit organization right now would have been nearly impossible because of the government shutdown and stay-at-home orders and things like that. But a little over a year ago, one of my administrators in my program suggested that I use the time as a student to start this mental health foundation that I knew I wanted to create at some point down the road. And mental health specifically because mental illness has played a part in my life very directly. I am open about the fact that I do live with a mental illness. I've had family members struggle with mental illness. In the African-American community, we often don't talk about it. And I've also had friends lose their lives because of mental health crises that were not addressed early enough. And so once I had moved out of the corporate world and I knew I wanted to work in public administration, specifically in the nonprofit sector, I realized that creating a mental health organization focused in grant making. A Beautiful Mind Foundation is not for services or products. It is an organization that provides funding for the other groups that are already on the ground in their communities, providing culturally competent mental health support services. And when I say culturally competent, the mission statement I created was specific to diverse communities. But right now we are focusing on communities of color. So the long and the short of it is that I created A Beautiful Mind Foundation to help fund organizations that are creating mental health education programs and support services that help communities of color.
Amazing. That's a great introduction. Thanks for that. So I guess we can just drop the mic and we're done right now.
No, we still have time.
I know you're a pro. And so for those of us out there that are aspiring to be public speakers of any sort and, great communicators, Adrienne just succinctly told us in a few minutes exactly who she is and what she does. So no, thanks for that. One thing that's I often talk to people about, like, especially, being in business, we speak about communities of color and such. Lots of times I've been in places where sometimes feel misunderstood. Sometimes I feel like on an island, and people around have done a great job to, try to be, help us be as inclusive as possible. Right. Try. And so some things that I talk about is, like, oftentimes it gets lonely, like when you're in your own head, because you have no one that you can communicate with about your experience and what you're going through, and the people that, you're maybe going through it with don't understand you, so to speak. I'm married with kids. And so there's times I don't even want to talk to my wife about it. My friends don't necessarily understand some of the challenges that we may face. And then I don't want to sound like sexist or anything like that, but growing up, it was just like, tough love, like, in the
you're a boy and be a man, right?
Man up, like, man up, like, it's all right. Like, and like, as an adult, I think I cried more as an adult than I did as a child. And, like,
and that's okay.
Yeah, feel comfortable, like, having emotions and being vulnerable and such. So I say all that to say is, like, what's the stigma behind, like, mental health? Like, what are you finding or have found that, or even if there is a stigma, is there any sort of stigma behind being vulnerable and emotional and understanding and trying to seek out what that really means?
Of course. I think you touched on a lot of those in terms of the ways that you have and have not been able to deal with your emotional situations, or even when it comes to mental health, those psychological crises, mini crises that people do experience. The stigma is huge. Who wants to be labeled as crazy, right? That's the big bad word when we talk about mental health, crazy. And unfortunately, because people are afraid of talking about their feelings, whether it is the ideas of masculinity or just a culture. And this is the part where we talk about cultural competency with my foundation, where you have cultural norms to not address mental health in a certain way, or to address it in a certain way. Go pray about it, or don't think about it. Or if it's talked about, you don't only bring shame on yourself, you bring shame on the entire family. That's one that shocked me when I started doing the research. That's within the Asian community. The African-American community, a lot of times it's the pray about it. The Latinx community, again, the man up kind of concept. But what I have found is that the more I talk about my challenges, the more other people around me talk about it. And so for anyone who is experiencing some sort of, whether it's depression or anxiety, or maybe there's what's clinically called a serious mental illness, an SMI, which may be severe depression, bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder, or schizophrenia, you have to talk to someone about it. You spoke about being in your own head. And I know for me, being in my head is the worst place to be. I need to be able to talk about what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. I am a strong believer in therapy, because when we are in something, we are emotionally attached, we're in the weeds, we can't help ourselves. We can't do it by ourselves. You can help yourself by reaching out to somebody to get that support, but we can't do it all alone. Humans are not made to be that way, right? We need each other. So again, what I found is that talking about it helps. And in addition to therapy, I'm a huge proponent for group therapy, not just talking to a practitioner or one-on-one, but group therapy, or just finding that one person. And if you can't talk to your spouse, well, who's that other person? Who's that other best friend you have in your life? Or is there a parent, a sibling, someone who you can trust, who hopefully will respond in kind by saying either, I understand, or I don't understand, but how can I help?
Right.
That's really what it comes down to, right? It's not that we can all fix each other, but how can we help each other? But you can't start to get help if you don't talk to someone. That's you have to open yourself up and be vulnerable. And the first person you talk to may not be the person that's going to be able to help you get what you need,
right?
But you have to start somewhere.
Group therapy, though.
Yes. Is that a scary concept?
Yeah, that's well, I mean, I guess it's kind of like us right now. If we were having a conversation and I'm telling you my story, I'm not in the same room with all the people, but
Right.
I could see where to many people that would be like daunting and pretty challenging. And I've heard of it, but I don't know that I would do the whole group therapy thing. I think I would like the one-on-one even more, and with the counseling piece. But yeah, tell me more about the group therapy, like how that works.
Well, and let me rephrase it slightly.
Okay.
Support groups.
Okay.
Right. So I actually have been a part of a support group, and I also am a facilitator through the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's NAMI, NAMI.org. I always encourage people to go to their website. They have a wealth of information about mental health and mental illness. But going to the support groups and helping to run a support group does a lot for the individuals, because it's a space where even if you don't have anything in common, different backgrounds, you grew up differently, you're from different places, even if you don't have the same diagnosis, you still have the same understanding of what it's like to be dealing with a mental health condition. And so what I found is that walking into a room, and now many of these groups are online and through virtual meetings, but the first time I walked into a room for a support group, I looked around and I thought, oh my gosh, who are these people? We have nothing in common. What am I doing here? And by the end of the meeting, I realized that it was the first place where I had never felt judged. Wow. And it was the first place where I didn't feel like I had to hide and shrink away to avoid the stigma of having a mental illness.
Wow.
That was powerful for me.
Yeah.
Now, I had met with therapists and done the one-on-one therapy, but when you're talking to a practitioner, they're looking at you with a different perspective, through a different lens. When you're talking amongst people who have had similar experiences or have just a similar frame of reference, that really changes the type of therapy and support that a person can have when you're amongst your peers. Got
it. So I'll just let you in on a couple group threads, chats that I have then.
Okay.
Text threads.
That can work too. I mean, I still have my support structure, which has taken a long time to build. And that consisted of specific friends who I know I can call if I'm having a bad day. We just check in with each other specifically now because everybody, I mean, the whole world is having kind of this one extended long bad day, right?
Yes.
We all need that extra support structure.
Right. Understood. And then so I want to, I think, take a good bit of time if we can. When you mentioned, because I saw when you introed, we're gonna be talking today. You mentioned cultural competency.
Yes.
And then you said it earlier. What's that? What is cultural competency?
Cultural competency basically means having an understanding of the culture that impacts how another person operates. So the two of us, and whether you use the term African American or Black, we originate and live in a culture that has certain norms, certain understandings. There are certain inside jokes, if you will, that people who look like us understand and experience on a daily basis. And I think in particular, over the last couple of months, the larger population in the United States has come to start to recognize is that African Americans live and view life through a different lens because of who we are and our heritage. The same thing for the Latinx population, Asian American population, Native American population. We all bring with us cultural norms and identities that impact who we are. So when you add mental illness to that, cultural competency is important, because if you have a practitioner who does not look like the person whom they are trying to help, and they don't have any kind of understanding, a cultural understanding of what that person brings to the table, then providing mental health support will fall short, because it doesn't address possibly the religious conflicts on what mental illness is and how do you talk about it. Or even literally for the Latinx population, there's a loss of communication. There's a breakdown in the language because of language barriers when a practitioner may not speak Spanish as a primary language. How people express things in different cultures can be translated, even when it's in English. The words that African Americans use to express signs of depression may not be similar to how their Caucasian counterparts express it. And so then you end up with a diagnosis that may not be accurate. And with a diagnosis comes treatment that may not be appropriate. And it just, so on and so forth.
Wow. That's very interesting. I mean, very true too. And that gets back into the whole, the diversity and inclusion too as well, because if you're coming to me and I'm putting you in more or less like a one size fits all, I'm doing you a disservice.
Absolutely.
Doing you a huge disservice. So like in regards to A Beautiful Mind Foundation, like what do you need? Like, how can we help you?
Oh my goodness. What do we need? Well, I like to point out that unfortunately, this foundation is not funded by private family money. I am not independently wealthy. I will be paying off student loans very soon, just like a lot of other people. So we do a lot of fundraising. We have a small board of directors right now, and we are just moving into year 2. And so in year 1, we did quite a bit of fundraising, and through individual donations and a few family fund donations from some of my classmates from UNC Chapel Hill, we were able to raise about $26,000. And in July, we held our inaugural awards celebration, and we announced 20 groups and individuals across the country whom we provided grants to a total of $22,315. And these groups are in 10 states and the District of Columbia, and they are either creating or we are helping to fund existing programming that supports culturally competent mental health support services. Now we're starting again. And so at this point, while I have had amazing support come from friends and family, people I went to high school with X number of years ago, we're hoping that by having created this track record in our first year, that we will be able to get larger donations from corporations and other family funds. Yes, we still absolutely will accept individual donations, because at the end of the day, literally every dollar counts. We are 100% volunteer run. So if someone doesn't have the cash to donate, and maybe they are able to connect us to their employer or to some larger organization that they're a part of, we also need additional volunteers. We have really low overhead, which is why when we took in about $26,000, we were able to give out more than $22,000 of that. So people who have experience with financial management for nonprofits, people who have social media management and web management, and our grants management committee, we're building out, because it's not just about the existing grants management program with bringing in applicants, reviewing them, and awarding the money, but also we're applying for grants to bring in those bigger dollars, so that I would say eventually we will bring in enough funding from large organizations so that we can hire an executive director. I've been running this organization for more than a year as a full-time volunteer. And so obviously that's not sustainable. And we do want to bring in at least part-time staff so that we can continue to operate and grow, because it's just, the need is amazing. We were originally asked for $70,000 in this
Right.
first grant cycle. Not everyone qualified. Unfortunately, the funds were not unlimited, but those applications came in just at the start of the pandemic.
Wow.
So we know that there's a greater need now, and we need to bring in the funds and have the volunteer and the staff infrastructure to be able to really provide additional funding and just support our community across the country.
Right, right, and that's why I took a liking to you, obviously, and we met this way. I think you were walking around and you were inviting folks to your the event,
Yes.
and then we spoke, and naturally, like my thing is, I'm try to be a connector. Like it means so much to me that I to be able to connect folks, um, and we started talking more. And the crazy thing is one of your mentors was a mentor of mine, remember? 'Cause
Yes,
I
that's
worked
right.
I worked for
Doug.
NPR for a long time.
Yes, Doug Mitchell.
Yeah, yeah, and so Doug, they had a great idea. Unfortunately, it didn't get off the ground, but, with the internet radio,
Yep.
and, um, and so anyway, we knew 6 degrees of separation, like, we knew each other through, Doug Mitchell, and then we started to speak and talk a little bit more, and,
And let me just get you to pause
yeah.
for one moment, because Doug is actually officially now the advisor to the board. So he's
Oh,
not
nice.
just my mentor of 20 years at this point, but he has
Yeah.
an official role with the organization.
Oh, that's amazing. He's a great guy. I learned so much from Doug. Just because my wife and I at the time, we weren't married yet. No, we weren't married yet, and we were putting together like an entertainment kind of show because I was doing like promotions on events and such. And so
Right.
we would interview artists and put it together, and Doug would edit and help us with the production and everything. And it was really cool.
He's
What
great.
we were doing. So yeah, he's an awesome guy. So that leads me to what I talked about earlier. The first thing I said is relationships.
Mhm.
Build relationships before you need them. Like I worked for NPR back in 97. Yeah,
Okay.
1997. And so, I mean, that's a long time ago, 23 years, right?
I met
And
Doug in 2000.
right. And so here we are, like the two of us, and we're connected through Doug Mitchell, and we have something in common, which would, lead us to have a greater bond. Right. And
Mhm.
so that's why I really promote to build relationships before you need them. And then based on the information that I've gathered from you and the research that I've done, and specifically with your background, I really believe in what you do. And I think it's a great thing. And as I always say, it would be ashamed if I have a network of people, and I'm unable to connect folks and introduce them. And so, that's why you're here. So how can before we wrap up, how can we find you and the Beautiful Mind
Yes,
Foundation?
please go to our website. It's abeautifulmindfoundation.org. You can learn a lot more about the organization. We have information on there about the basics of mental health and mental illness, also information about cultural competency. And then, of course, there are a few places where you can connect with us. You can sign up for our mailing list. We do no more than 4 emails a month. You can also shoot us an email. I absolutely will respond to requests for anytime somebody's trying to connect with me. I am easy to access. And I do just two things I want to point out. Right now, my goal is for us to raise $50,000 before the end of the year. Might sound ambitious to some folks. We have a very small team, but at the beginning of our fiscal year, July, we received a $10,000 grant from International Gaming Corporation Scientific Games. They're based in Las Vegas. They found a value in what we're doing, and they wanted to support us, and not just through the donation, but they also asked me to speak to their staff on 3 different occasions through a 45-minute Q&A sessions.
Wow.
So I'm hoping that there will be other corporations that will take a look at the website, find value in what we're doing, and be able to support us, and not just through the end of this year, but moving forward. We are just getting started.
That's amazing. So second pillar, DNA. We know your purpose and why you do what you do. So
Yes.
here's that question that you've been thinking about, I'm sure, this whole time in the back of your mind. So this is typically an icebreaker, with meetings and things that we do in public settings. So I'm ending with it though. uh, dead or alive, if you could have coffee, lunch, dinner, meeting, whatever it might be, who would your top choice be?
John Lewis.
Oh, wow.
He was one of my heroes. He passed away the night before our awards celebration. And it was tough for me to hear that news because he fought for people's rights,
Yes.
equal rights. And I look at the work that I'm doing, the mission that I'm on to help get people equal access to mental health services as something that's in alignment with what he was doing. And I had always hoped to be able to meet him and thank him for the work that he spent his life doing. Because if it hadn't been for him and others like him, you and I wouldn't be sitting here now. We wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't have the careers and the education and the freedoms that we do have. As much as our country is challenged right now, we do still have a lot. And I would love to thank him, even if it wasn't a conversation, just to say thank you.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. So no worries. And what we'll do is I'll ask you to hang on the line, and I'm going to close it out in just a sec. But Adrienne, I really appreciate you. Every time I see you, you're smiling, you're happy, like you're going and getting it. And I know you believe wholeheartedly in what you're doing, and so that's the sign right there, is when someone appears to enjoy what they're doing. It just comes through. You can see it. And so we're going to do everything we can to help you and support you. I'll keep doing what I can to connect you. And like I said, I just ask folks in the network here, number one, to understand the importance of mental health, and the challenges that go through it, and how to get some help if you need it. Secondly, I really I'm going to personally dig deep on the cultural competency. So I understand it, at the level that you were speaking, but I think it's we can go even more narrow into it, and I think it's super important. But yeah, thank you for your time today. As always, as I say to everyone every week, if there's anything that we can do to help you in any way, just reach out. Don't know how I can help you, but I will always try. And just remain safe. Just practice good habits, and make the best decisions that you possibly can. We're not here to judge anyone, but just be safe. And I hope everyone has a great day. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Shawn.
No worries.